the 7 summits, a legendary achievement and the dream of nearly every serious mountaineer, to climb the highest mountain on each continent. But not all of them are created equal. Some are gentle treks that nearly anyone can do. Others are frozen, remote, and deadly, demanding tens of thousands of dollars, weeks of brutal effort, and a fair amount of luck just to survive. Today we are ranking all of the 7 highest peaks on each continent to find out which one is the easiest, the deadliest, the cheapest, and the one only the rich dare to climb. Only over 500 people have completed the full circuit. You wouldn't guess what it takes to climb the second mountain on this list, and the facts about number 6 will definitely surprise you too. At the end, you'll find out exactly how much it would cost to climb them all. Let's begin. We start with Africa. From high above the equator, a single peak rises out of the plains, completely isolated, no surrounding ridgelines, no neighboring summits, just one massive formation cutting through clouds and sky. It doesn't look extreme at first glance. But don't be fooled, this one surprises almost everyone who climbs it. Kilimanjaro is the starting point for most people attempting the 7 summits. It's the highest mountain in Africa, but technically, it's not a difficult climb. There are no glaciers to cross, no ropes, no technical skills required. You're walking from base to summit, with altitude as your biggest challenge. It's a stratovolcano, made up of 3 cones, and rises entirely alone out of the Tanzanian landscape. Climbers usually begin their trek around 1,800 meters, passing through rainforest, moorland, and alpine desert on the way up. By the summit, you're in a high-altitude Arctic zone, standing on ice with glaciers to either side, even though you're just 300 kilometers from the equator. There are 7 established routes, but most climbers stick to a few common ones. The meringue route is the most accessible, with huts along the way, and a reputation for being the easiest, though, ironically, it has one of the lowest summit success rates. The Machame and Lemosho routes are more scenic and slightly longer, giving climbers better acclimatization. The Rungai route, coming in from the north, is quieter and more gradual, and the Western Breach, partially reopened, offers a steeper, more direct line. But no matter the route, the most common issue is altitude sickness. The summit sits at 5,895 meters, and many climbers don't take enough time to adjust. Climbing here doesn't require permits in the alpine sense, but the Tanzanian government does require all climbers to book through licensed guides. Independent ascents aren't allowed, and each team is required to have local porters and support staff. Because of that, Kilimanjaro is also a major employer. Over 20,000 porters work on its slopes each season, and it sees more traffic than any other 7-summit mountain, with up to 50,000 people attempting it every year. Prices vary widely. Budget operators charge as little as $1,500, but corners are often cut on safety and wages. Most reputable outfitters fall in the $2,500 to $4,000 range, depending on the route and duration. Despite the crowds, fatalities are extremely rare. Only a handful of deaths are reported each year, most due to pre-existing conditions or altitude complications. The overall death rate is often cited at around 0.03%, making it one of the safest major peaks in the world. But that doesn't mean it's easy. Many underestimate it and pay the price with altitude sickness, failed summits, or evacuations, and that's what makes this one deceptive. It may be the most approachable, but it still demands respect. Next, we head to Antarctica, a continent with no cities, no permanent population, and almost no access. Buried deep inside the Ellsworth Mountains, this next peak sits just 1,200 kilometers from the South Pole. And while it might be surprising to see it so early on this list, this is the only mountain among the 7 summits with no confirmed fatalities, something that can't be said about any of the others. This mountain is not easy. In fact, it might be one of the most difficult climbs to complete on this entire list. It's remote, brutally cold, and located on the most inaccessible continent on Earth. But there's one key reason it ranks so low in danger. No one has ever died on Vinson Massif. It's the only mountain on this list with a perfect safety record, thanks to tight logistics, highly experienced teams, and the fact that everything here is run like clockwork. At 4,892 meters, it's the highest peak in Antarctica. First spotted from the air in 1958 and climbed for the first time in 1966 by an American team led by Nicholas Clinch. The standard route follows the west face and west buttress, a demanding glacier climb through deep snow, sub-zero temperatures, and storm-prone ridgelines. There's no rock climbing involved, but the cold alone makes even routine tasks exhausting, and a weather delay here can last for days. Reaching the mountain requires a flight from Punta Arenas, Chile to Union Glacier Camp, followed by a ski plane drop onto the ice. There are no nearby towns, no alternate routes, and no rescue infrastructure. Everything has to be flown in, supported, and managed in Antarctica's narrow summer window. And that's where the real difficulty lies: the cost. Vinson is the most expensive of the 7 summits. A typical guided expedition costs between $45,000 and $55,000, simply because every step of the journey requires aviation, fuel, food, and risk planning in one of the harshest environments on Earth. There are no cheap operators, and climbing independently isn't an option. But in return, the mountain has an incredibly high success rate, and no fatality history. It's cold, it's isolated, and it's one of the most expensive peaks on the planet. But compared to what comes later, Vinson Massif might just be the safest summit on this list. From the frozen interior of Antarctica, we jump to the tropics of Oceania. Deep in the jungles of Papua, hidden behind layers of rainforest and clouds, the next summit rises not from ice, but from solid rock. It's steep, sharp, and harder to reach than almost any other mountain on this list, and for years it was completely off limits. Carstensz Pyramid, also known as Puncak Jaya. It rises 4,884 meters, or 16,024 feet, making it the tallest mountain on any island in the world. And unlike the last 2 summits, this one is technical. To reach the top, you'll need to rock climb. The standard route includes long stretches of steep, exposed limestone, plus fixed ropes, wet slabs, and a Tyrolean traverse across a giant gap near the summit. It's a real climb, not a trek. And while it's not extreme by modern standards, it's enough to make Carstensz one of the most demanding summits on this list, especially for non-climbers. The mountain was first summited in 1962 by a mixed team from Austria, New Zealand, Australia, and the Netherlands, including famed Austrian climber Heinrich Harrer. But reaching the summit isn't the hard part. Getting there is. Carstensz is located in one of the most politically unstable and logistically challenging regions on Earth. In the past, climbers had to trek through dense rainforest for over a week, through leech-infested swamps and tribal territories, dodging rainfall, landslides, and the occasional extortion checkpoint. Today, most expeditions use helicopters, flying from the mining town of Tamika straight to base camp. But even that isn't guaranteed. Permits are limited. The region has seen repeated shutdowns. And in 2024, just months after reopening, one expedition ended in tragedy after a climber died from hypothermia on the descent. Despite all that, the mountain itself isn't deadly, at least not statistically. Fatalities are rare, and most guided groups succeed, but access restrictions, high costs, and weather delays make it one of the hardest climbs to even attempt. What about the price? Usually between $10,000 and $20,000 US, depending on whether you fly or hike, and how stable the region is that month. It's not the tallest, but Carstensz Pyramid might just be the most complex summit on the list. Now we head to South America. In Argentina, right next to the Chilean border, a massive peak dominates the skyline of the Andes, the tallest mountain anywhere outside of Asia. It doesn't require technical climbing, but its altitude, storms, and exposure have made it a brutal test for thousands of mountaineers. Aconcagua is the highest mountain in the southern and western hemispheres, standing at 6,962 meters, or 22,841 feet. And despite its height, it's not a technical climb. There are no glaciers to cross, no ropes to fix, and no exposed rock to navigate on the standard route. In fact, it's often called the highest trekking peak in the world. But that description can be misleading, because Aconcagua is a brutal climb, not because of terrain, but because of altitude, weather, and sheer exposure. The mountain sits in Argentina, right next to the Chilean border. Its name likely comes from local Quechua words meaning stone sentinel. It was first submitted in 1897 by Swiss mountaineer Matthias Zurbriggen, climbing solo as part of a larger European expedition. The normal route starts in the Horcones Valley, ascending gradually through base camps like Plaza de Mulas and Camp Nido. It's a long, slow grind over loose rock, scree, and high winds. Climbers face a wide-open upper slope known as the Canaleta, a final push to the summit that's notorious for draining energy at high altitude. No technical skills are needed, but that's also part of the problem. Because it's seen as easy, many climbers underestimate it and suffer the consequences. Frostbite, altitude sickness, and exhaustion are common. The summit stands just under 7,000 meters. And unlike the Himalayas, there's no Sherpa support here. You carry your own gear, set your own camps, and deal with the cold on your own terms. Every year, about 3 climbers die on Aconcagua. That may not sound like much, but when compared to the number of people who attempt it, the death rate is higher than many realize. There's no helicopter rescue above 6,000 meters, no rapid descent options, and the mountain has a long history of sudden storms catching teams off guard. On the cost side, it's more affordable than most high peaks. Budget trips start around $3,000, and high-end guided expeditions range from $5,000 to $7,000. Independent climbers can go even cheaper, but must still pay for permits, food transport, and logistics. And that's what defines Aconcagua. It's accessible, yes, but unforgiving if you're not prepared. You don't need crampons or ropes. You need healthy lungs, patience, and a healthy respect for altitude. Next, we move to Europe. Near the southern edge of Russia, deep in the Caucasus Mountains, a twin-peaked volcano rises higher than any other mountain on the continent. It may not look extreme from a distance, but this one has earned a dangerous reputation, mostly because of how underestimated it is. Elbrus is the highest mountain in Europe, rising 5,642 meters, or 18,510 feet, above the Russian Caucasus. It's a dormant volcano, with 2 rounded summits, and on paper, it looks like one of the most accessible peaks on the 7 summits list. There are cable cars, snowcats, and even heated huts partway up the mountain. But don't let that fool you. Elbrus is one of the most underestimated mountains in the world, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous. The higher western summit was first climbed in 1874 by a British expedition. Today, most climbers take the normal route from the south, starting from huts at 3,800 meters and climbing snow slopes straight to the top. There are no technical sections, no rock, no ropes, and no real glacier crossings on the main line. But the weather here is brutal. Whiteouts, high winds, and sudden drops in temperature are common, even in summer. And that's where Elbrus has caught so many people off guard. Most years, 5 to 10 climbers die on this mountain. Many are strong hikers, but not prepared for the altitude, the cold, or the fact that a storm can erase the trail in minutes. One of the worst tragedies happened in 2021, when a group of 19 climbers was caught in a blizzard just below the summit. 5 of them died, less than 400 meters from the top. Russia's mountain rescue team say Elbrus has the highest number of search and rescue calls in the entire country, not because the mountain is technically hard, but because it seems easy. There's also a north route, more remote, with no infrastructure, but most people attempt the south side, where access is simple and regulation is loose. Elbrus is also one of the cheapest of the 7 summits. Guided climbs start around $1,200, and many people attempt it fully independently. That low price brings crowds, and crowds bring risk. So while Elbrus may not demand ropes or ice axes, it still claims lives every single year. It's not the hardest summit, but it might be the most dangerously misunderstood. Now we head north, far north. In the heart of Alaska, surrounded by glaciers and deep wilderness, the next summit rises taller than anything else in North America. But this one isn't just high, it's massive, cold, and brutally remote. A mountain that demands everything and gives nothing for free. Denali is the highest mountain in North America, standing 6,190 meters, or 20,310 feet above sea level. But that number doesn't tell the full story. Because Denali isn't just high, it has the greatest vertical relief of any mountain on Earth. From base to summit, it rises over 5,000 meters, straight from the Alaskan tundra. That's more vertical than Everest. It was once called Mount McKinley, but in 2015, the US government restored its original name, Denali, meaning the high one, in the Koyukon Athabascan language. The first confirmed ascent came in 1913, when a team led by Hudson Stuck and Harry Carstensz reached the summit via the Muldrow Glacier. Today, nearly all climbers follow a different route, the West Buttress, established in 1951. It's not a technical climb, but that doesn't make it easy. Denali's West Buttress is a long, grueling snow and glacier route. Climbers haul sleds, navigate crevasse fields, set up multiple high camps, and endure some of the worst weather of any mountain on this list. Storms here are brutal. Temperatures drop to minus 40 degrees Celsius, and the mountain's location, near the Arctic Circle, means thinner air and tougher acclimatization. Most expeditions take 2 to 3 weeks, and everything must be carried by hand. There are no porters, no guides unless you pay for them. It's self-supported, remote, and cold. The approach alone involves flying from Talkeetna to a glacier base camp by small bush plane. From there, it's nothing but snow and sky for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. And Denali is dangerous. Since records began, more than 130 people have died on its slopes. The fatality rate is estimated at around 0.3%, significantly higher than Kilimanjaro or Aconcagua. Most deaths come from falls, frostbite, or altitude-related illnesses, and rescues, while possible, can take days due to weather and terrain. Climbing Denali isn't cheap, but it's also not the most expensive. Permits cost about $435, and most guided trips range from $6,000 to $12,000. Independent climbers can go cheaper, but they need serious skills and equipment. There's no support system on the mountain. For many, Denali is the most challenging of all the 7 summits, not because of altitude, but because of cold, distance, and raw physical effort. It's the biggest vertical climb on this list, and it doesn't let you forget it. And now, we reach the final summit, the one that needs no introduction. On the border of Nepal and Tibet, rising higher than any point on Earth, this is the peak that redefined what humans could reach. But with fame comes danger and controversy. Because climbing this mountain isn't just difficult, it's a global industry. Everest is the highest mountain on Earth, 8,848 meters, or 29,031 feet. It sits on the border of Nepal and Tibet, and for decades it's been the most iconic and controversial peak in the world. The mountain was first measured in 1856 by British surveyors, but wasn't successfully climbed until 1953, when Edmund Hillary of New Zealand and Tenzing Norgay, a Sherpa from Nepal, reached the summit via the South Col. Today, most climbers still follow that same route, starting from Lukla, trekking through the Khumbu Valley, and ascending through Camp 4 and the Southeast Ridge. There's also the North Ridge from Tibet, which is colder, windier, and more remote. But both sides share one thing in common: they're dangerous. Everest is high, too high for helicopters to safely hover, too high for your body to properly adapt. And once you pass 8,000 meters, you're in what climbers call the death zone, where oxygen levels are so low, your body begins to shut down. Despite modern gear and support, over 300 people have died on Everest. Some years, as many as 10 or 15 climbers die in a single season. The fatality rate varies, but sits around 1 to 2% of summit attempts, with higher rates in the early decades. Most deaths happen due to altitude sickness, exposure, avalanches, or falls, often on descent when climbers are already exhausted. And then there's the traffic. In recent years, Everest has become a commercial magnet, with hundreds of climbers attempting the summit during the same narrow weather windows. That's led to crowding, delays, and deadly traffic jams high on the mountain, including the infamous 2019 line, where multiple climbers died waiting in place near the Hillary Step. Cost varies wildly. Budget operators from Nepal charge as low as $33,000, but you'll wait in line, carry your own oxygen, and risk being undersupported. Top-tier Western outfitters charge $60,000 to $90,000, with full logistics, weather teams, and Sherpa support. Permits alone cost $15,000 per climber in Nepal, and that's just the start. Everest is the highest, but also the most crowded, most expensive, and the most publicized peak in mountaineering history. To summit here is to stand where only a fraction of humans have ever been. but it comes at a cost, in money, in risk, and sometimes in lives. Okay, so how much would summiting all 7 peaks realistically cost? Even on the low end, you're looking at over $100,000, and for most climbers, the true cost falls somewhere between $130,000 and $180,000 once you factor in permits, gear, travel, and support. It's a massive effort, physically, logistically, and financially. And for most people, it's not just a challenge, it's a lifetime goal. Let me know in the comments which summit surprised you the most, or which one you'd attempt first. Thanks for watching.